Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo, ba ba. Who's the man who will speak the truth? Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo, ba ba. Lone candles that burn. Who's the man who will bring light into your life? Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo. Ba-ba, lone candles that burn. Who's the man who digs through human excrement to present you the gems? Boo, ba-ba, ba-boo, ba-boo, ba-ba, lone candles that burn. Who's the man who kinda sometimes knows what he's talking about? Boo, ba-ba, ba-ba-da-boo. Ba-ba, lone candles that burn. Who's the man who has a scatterbrained, low IQ, and weak memory recall? Boo, ba-ba, ba-ba-da-boo. Ba-ba, lone candles that burn. Who's the man who... Hello? Hello? Hi. I'm Lone Candle. Welcome to Lone Candle Live. And this is another ReplyGuying with Lone Candle. Alright. Today, I replied to this. Well, I didn't reply today, but today I'm discussing where I replied here. Oren Cass, he's an economist who talks about stuff. A lot of what he's kind of famous for, or at least what I've seen him a lot in the media for, is talking about how, people are struggling because certain particular really important things have gotten more expensive, like housing and education. And that even if it looks like overall people can afford more, those things are so important that they make life really difficult. But anyways, he was interviewed here, and I had myself a little comment. Beautiful. And so somewhere in this, he mentioned that if you consume more, that people are consuming more, and I didn't think he took into account very well, or he dismissed too easily what I said, which was, if you can consume more, then you can afford to have children. That people are consuming so much shows they can afford and can afford children and are choosing not to. And so, when we say children are having less children, we mean less than the past, less than at least the history of the United States, or even just earlier in the 20th century, or in the first half of the 20th century. Things weren't easier then. In fact, they were harder. And we know that people consume more now. So it's not that people have less money. They actually have greater spending power more. And if you consume more, then actually you could choose to have children. You just have to cut back on what you're really used to. And I didn't feel convinced that what he's saying counters that. Anyways, classic libertarian said, reply guide to me, this is true and false. Most of the people complaining today about not being able to afford kids in the USA actually can afford to have children if they wanted to downsize their lifestyle / not grow their consumption as much each year. And I used most on purpose, as there are obviously many, particularly in those in a couple very high cost of living major metros who really cannot find reasonable options to downsize living expenses / would require moving across the country and maybe changing their careers to do so. As the interview mentions, houses are indeed larger today on average, particularly newer homes, which is why they cost more. But finding smaller, more affordable ones means needing to be able to invest heavily to fix them up, or moving to areas with less economic opportunity. But it can still be done, just not as easily as it was in the 50s or 60s. Of course, he's ignoring that you could also rent and live in an apartment. There are also very real issues
in the projection of careers and diminishing long-term stable options to raise families. As the latter gets pulled up, younger generations find them saving an extra 5% each month will not be enough to get them a house in 4 years, so they might as well spend a little more now and enjoy themselves. The economy is still producing results, just not as much and not the same types of results necessary for long-term family formation. College education is a necessity now, which lowers total fertility as more women are delaying pregnancy due to education. College education is viewed as a necessity because while college education doesn't give you as much of an absolute advantage as it has in the labor market in the past, it gives you relatively more advantage over having just high school education, which now, unlike in the 60s, indicates that there is usually some serious deficiency in your ability or character, since getting into college is relatively easier now. A lot of things need to change in society to fix this. Some of them are federal policy, some of them are state and local policy, some of them are cultural attitudes. So, he said a lot there, and I actually didn't reply because, generally, I don't have a huge major disagreement. I don't know if I agree with all the specifics, but like I said at the top, most people complaining today about not being able to afford kids in the USA actually can afford to have children, which is my point. It's at least as affordable today as it was in the history when people had more children. So just looking at the cost, well, yes, it would be nice if we got some of those major costs down. They're not higher than they were in the past when people had more kids. So the costs alone don't explain the change, the lower amount of children. You need something more than just a cost, because the costs haven't gotten higher compared to the past. At least overall, the costs have not gotten higher. And so, you need something else. Probably a cultural change, a certain level of selfishness, a certain level of, oh, yeah, but I don't want to give up my lifestyle. Well, that's no more true now than was the past. Just before, people did it, and today people are like, no, I'm not going to make that sacrifice, and the human race is ending because of it. All right, so that's someone replying to him. I don't care about that, but here's another guy replying to me. So he says, I agree overall, but there is also a timing mismatch. Home ownership is happening later and later in life, and total consumption peaks in middle age on average. This doesn't line up well with the windows for having kids. Yes, that doesn't really strike me as true. Total consumption has always peaked in middle age, and so I don't know why he's saying, well, it's peaked in middle age. Well, it's always peaked in middle age, but okay, it's probably peaked later due to people needing education. All right, because their peak earnings are going to be later because more people get education to get there, but it's still middle-aged. But anyways, total consumption has always peaked in middle age. I assume it has shifted older due to people getting more education? If so, they'll have more total income and should still finish education and get a job in time to have kids. Yeah, so he's talking about, the windows don't line up, because it's happening all later in life. Well, as far as like the total consumption, it's delayed from college, so it's delayed from 4 years. Even to get a bigger degree, it's 8 years, but that's still enough time to actually have children. And so it's not like it delays it past the time when you can actually still have at least 3 kids or even more. It doesn't, and so I don't really buy that as an explanation. Let's see. The demographic problem isn't people having kids in their 30s and late 20s instead of their mid and early 20s. So as in the problem, the problem is not, people having it in their 30s and late 20s rather than having it in their mid and early 20s. But the problem is people not having kids at all, or not enough of them. If a woman starts at 30, she still most likely will be able to have 3 kids. Rather than 1 or 0. Although her career will likely be on hold, people are choosing to delay until it's too late, or to not have them at all because they don't want to make the sacrifice. It has always been a sacrifice. Some of the later home ownership is called by people not planning on having kids yet. So he's referring to that people buy homes much later in life and saying that's indication that, that's reason they don't have children. But also, if people have already decided to not have kids, they might decide also they don't need to own a home. And so there's some of that in that. I'm not saying that explains all of it, but some of that would will explain part of that stat. And also, home ownership is, of course, important for that. And it is a key thing that it is one of those things that, despite things being more affordable overall relative to median income, homes, of course, have gotten stupidly expensive. But enough other stuff is cheaper that it's still not more expensive than it used to be to have children. And you don't actually have to own a home to have children. All right. Here's his response to that. Bottom line, I agree that or maybe the primary reason people are having fewer kids is that the opportunity cost is now higher due to greater access to careers for women, entertainment, etc. So he's saying, the primary reason is we have more things to do now. One thing, women can get careers, so they're not forced to be housewives, but also both men and women, there's so many things you can spend money on and do stuff travel's a big thing. People love to travel. And, well, guess what? If you have children, you're going to not be able to do nearly as many of those. One, because you're not going to have the time, but a second, is you're not going to have as much money. And he's saying there's so many more opportunities now that you're actually missing out on less. I'm not really sure I buy that's the main driver. It's certainly part of it, but I don't think that's it. I mean, people could still go out and have fun in ways that they wouldn't be able to if they had children in the past. I mean, are there really that many more opportunities? Obviously, the woman one is much more important than, I think, entertainment, because when women have options and where they're basically allowed to have careers rather than being that rare woman that broke in despite that they're all the deck is stacked against them, when it's acceptable for women to go out and even encouraged to go out and get careers. A lot of women are going to go, no, I want to focus on my career and not have children. So I do agree that's got to be a big part of it. So he also said, in a sense, you could argue that we're too rich. But delayed milestones such as homeownership and an increased sense of financial precarity probably play a role. I'm not sure we have a greater sense of financial precarity now than we did in the past. I mean, I at least am skeptical that that's any worse than it is, because often we can see people or ourselves having financial precarity now, and we're not actually seeing people having it 50 years ago, but it's because we're not there. If we transfer ourselves back in time, we might see, oh yeah, you know what, people felt precarious back then too. Probably play a role too, especially below the upper middle class. And of course, so what he's ignoring here is huge cultural change, which is a certain, it used to be more the expectation that you have children. It used to be the expectation that you make that sacrifice. It used to be more the expectation that was part of your role in life. And now it's really not. It's more, quote, okay to not have children, even when you could have, and even when you could afford it. And so you have all these opportunities to do other things. Women don't want to hurt their careers. And you have everyone telling you can't afford it and it's too expensive. Well, it's always been too expensive to have children. There's nothing different about that. And so I do think you need to add a cultural explanation of it being more okay to not have children. And that is slowly killing the human race, because if you don't have children, human race dies. And so, yeah, I think these people are ignoring an additional cultural argument. And, at the very top, they totally admit that people are consuming more and then saying, oh, they can't afford it. Well, that doesn't make sense. If you can afford to assume more, then that means you could just not consume more, consume the same you did in the past, and have children. Ideally, you could still, join in on this great growth of economics that we have, consume more and have children, and that actually should be possible if we had less inequality. But that's a whole nother video. That's a whole other podcast about why our country is doing that to us and making things harder for people. But people, the median person today, can consume more, has more ability to spend than they did in the past when people had more children. And so you can't say the main reason people aren't having children is because people can't afford it, because, well, people never really could afford it to the extent that they could, or they can afford it just as well now as they could in the past. And so that can't, because that stayed the same over time, it couldn't be the key cause in explaining why people are having less children. All right. Well, I'm Lone Candle. Like me, comment me, love me,
Mwah!
and stream.